title for today's session is Using Yoga to Integrate Plant Medicine. And so I want to sort of talk a little bit about the power of integrating these two modalities, these two approaches to the spiritual path, and then go into a session that gives you some idea of the ways that yoga can help integrate these intense experiences. My name is Jayadev. I've been a yoga teacher for over a decade and working with plant medicine in various ways for about 5 years. So my personal experience with plant medicine actually began with a 10-day intensive yoga and ayahuasca retreat in Peru. So from the beginning, my experience of working with plant medicine has been deeply intertwined with yoga. And because of that, I've been able to kind of understand the benefits that yoga can offer as a sort of container around these powerful transformational plant medicine experiences. And so today I wanted to give everyone a taste of these integration practices that yoga can offer for working with plant medicine. And so we'll go through a little bit of a sequence and experience firsthand the powerful integration and healing benefits of yoga. But first I wanted to say a little more about the symbiosis between these two modalities and why they go so well together. First of all, I mean, personally in my experience, both of these things can offer you direct access to unity consciousness. And they both can give you access to the pituitary and pineal gland where the DMT resides. And so there's a deep, long-standing tradition going back thousands of years. It turns out actually that ancient yogis in India were working with different kinds of sacred plants. And if you want to know more about this, I actually explore this deeply in recent episodes of my podcast, Spiritual But Not Ridiculous. But anyways, yeah, today we're going to experience some of these integration practices. So, even if you're not working with plant medicine too, I want to say that this session is relevant because right now, I think with the pandemic and everything, we're all going through a kind of global sacred ceremony in some sense, right? So we're all going through a deep process of transformation, whether it's voluntary or involuntary. So I think this session can be relevant for everyone, and hopefully I can offer you some practices that you can incorporate into your daily life. Just in terms of working with plant medicine in general and this time we're going through, it's just so important to integrate these practices. The benefits that plant medicine can offer, like ayahuasca and San Pedro and these different plants, is deep transformation, deep release of trauma in the body, different realizations, letting go of old narratives and conditioning. All these things can come out of your experience with plant medicine, but unless you can integrate those experiences and bring them back into your daily life in a grounded way where you feel centered and you feel sort of whole and integrated within yourself, then those experiences are just going to be a little bit too intense for you to kind of integrate, without some modality, some practice, some approach to doing that intentionally. And so that's a lot of what we're going to cover today in this session. So again, the reason that yoga is so powerful in this is that it's designed, it's ultimately all about working with the subtle energy, the subtle body, and the chakras and that kind of thing. So we'll get into that a little bit in the session, but this is why yoga is so perfect for integration and for creating that container around plant medicine. So as we'll see in this session, these practices, these traditional yogic practices, can take different forms for integration. So it might be fostering a sense of devotion, or just grounding, or coming into a state of bliss or gratitude, or just maybe just a simple restorative practice, that kind of thing. So there's all these different elements that we'll experience today to the integration practice. And typically I customize these specifically for individual clients and students. So today it's going to be more of a sampler, let's say, of the different practices that you might benefit from for integration. And I just want to say before we get started, two practices that are absolutely essential for integration can be meditation and different kinds of sacred ceremonies. Meditation is a whole separate practice that requires, deep exploration and an initiation. So we won't do that today, but we will touch on some meditative practices, and we will experience stillness nevertheless. So we'll do some meditative techniques today. And then in terms of sacred rituals, these are powerful for integration because they give us the direct access to sort of the intelligence of nature, and there's more of an opening with sacred rituals. We're working with the elements of nature to access unity consciousness and to connect with the ground level reality, but also to develop a sense of the sacred in life, right? So it's this continuum that we're experiencing with these sacred ceremonies like puja or yajna, these fire ceremonies. They can put us in contact with the unity of existence, and this can be done through the heart instead of the head, and through a state of surrender instead of a state of forcing or a state of control, right? So that's the beauty of sacred ritual. We're not going to do that today either because the whole session would become far too long, but I just wanted to touch on that as another powerful modality. So today we're gonna focus on some practices that include pranayama, kriyas, and a little bit of movement to ground, and then we'll end with stillness. So that's the practice today. We'll start with some grounding practices, and typically the whole asana practice itself is very grounding in general. But today we're not going to do so much asana because I feel like asana is so widely available to folks, and you can find plenty of asana on your own. What I wanted to offer today was more sort of seated practices, more energetic practices that are also in themselves very grounding. And so that's what we're going to start with today. I recommend putting on some soft restorative music if you want. I actually have a playlist for this purpose if you want to check that out on Spotify. It's called Ethereal Music for Elemental Yoga. So before we get started, I just wanted to say one thing about finding a comfortable seat. So let's go onto the mat and grab some props. Ideally, you might have a block or a cushion or some pillows to sit on, and I'll meet you on the mat. So here we are on the mat. I'm not going to get too into detail about finding a comfortable seat, but I do want to say a few brief things. It's important to have a good seat and elevate your hips because with these practices, we want to be comfortable, and we want to have a configuration of the pelvis so that our spine is tall to open up the central energy channel with some of these energetic practices in a way where we're not using a lot of effort and we're not rounding, and the hips are in a nice and neutral position. So what that usually means for folks is you're sitting on something. I'm sitting on some books, but you can sit on a block, a cushion, whatever you want, just to make sure your hips are at least level with the knees, but ideally higher than the knees. That's the first thing. And if your hips are tight, if your ankles are tight, feel free to elevate a lot. You could sit on, this much support, or you could sit on a chair too if you want for these practices we're going to do. So just find, you can pause the video, find your comfortable seat, and then we'll get started. Okay, so let's get started with the practice. We're going to start with some seated practices, then go into a little bit of movement just to loosen up a little bit, and then we'll come back into a seated finale to access deeper states of stillness. Okay, so the first practice we're going to do is pranayama. This is a very grounding, centering, and balancing practice where we're working with two different flows of the energy of the body, the prana. And so it's going to use two mudras. We're using two mudras in this. The first mudra is the prana mudra, and that's where we're just touching the tip of the ring finger and the pinky with the thumb, and then extending the index and middle finger. And we're going to be resting those, so both of our hands are in prana mudra, in that same mudra. Our hands are resting on the thighs, palms facing up. And this will be the mudra we use for the inhale. So we're inhaling through the nose. And then we're going to exhale with a different mudra. This is apana mudra. And here we're extending the index finger and the pinky. And then we're touching the tip of the middle and ring finger with the thumb. And we're going to have the palm facing down on that one. So you can just kind of gently rest the fingertips or however you want to do that depending on your arm length. And I should say this mudra is not to be practiced by pregnant women. So if you're pregnant, don't do this one, but you can still do the breathing. So we're going to be going back and forth between these two mudras, inhaling and exhaling through the nose. You can close the eyes once you've got the mudras, but feel free to watch me in the beginning. And let's get started. Feel free to put the music on if you haven't already. Okay, so tall spine, sitting comfortably. And we're inhaling with prana mudra, palms facing up. You can hold the breath at the top of the inhale for as long as is comfortable if you want, totally optional. And then exhaling through the nose, turning into apana mudra, palms facing down. The shoulders are relaxed, inhaling. The breath is very slow. There's no rush at all here. Just following the breath. Everything is relaxed. We're working with the power of the breath to regulate the nervous system, and to begin to work with the energy of the body. To balance the energy channels, to balance the energy. And after this round, letting go of the mudras, keep the eyes closed and just sit quietly for a few breaths. Noticing how you're feeling. And then slowly opening your eyes and coming back. Okay, so that was pranayama. We'll continue with some more grounding and balancing and centering, but we'll go into a practice called the breath of light, which is also going to give us sort of a relief from the stress we may be feeling from intense emotions or intense experiences. So with breath of light, we're going to be working with the breath once again. It's a 7-part inhale through the nose, and then a 1-part exhale through the nose. So it's very simple in that way. It's very slow and steady rhythm. So the inhale in 7 parts sort of goes like this, like that kind of slow pace, so you're not rushing through the breath. So I can demonstrate, but you probably won't hear anything on the microphone. But it's sort of like, and then once again, you can hold the breath at the top of the inhale. And then exhale through the nose in one part, so all the way out. And the attention is just following the breath. If you happen to know the location of the chakras, I invite you to bring your attention to each chakra on each of the 7 parts of the inhale. But otherwise, you're just following the breath. Okay, so let's begin this one. We'll be here for a little longer. Tall spine. Inhaling in 7 parts. The hands are just resting on the thighs. Going at your own pace. No hurry here. You may notice that the breath starts to deepen or to slow down even further. That's great. Keep going. 7-part inhale, 1-part exhale. You know, and if you're new to these practices, you may notice that your mind is wondering why we're doing it for so long. And if that happens, you just notice that thought and continue. With all these practices, we're trusting in the practice. We're surrendering into the practice. And after this round, letting go of the breath and sitting quietly with your eyes closed. Take a few breaths. And then slowly open your eyes and come back. So we'll finish this little seated sequence with a very healing practice that is working directly with some of the lower chakras. And so this is chakra Trikona Bandha. And so here we're going to be working with the subtle body a little bit. And this is going to give us the ability to release more of our fears, our old narratives, and that kind of thing. So in this one, we're going to work with the lower three chakras. And so the first chakra, as you may know, is at the perineum or the base of the spine, roughly in that area. And then the second chakra is a little bit up from that, sort of between the first and third chakra. So the third chakra is at the navel. And so if you wanted to take the thumb of your hand, you could sort of like extend the pinky down towards the first chakra. The second chakra is going to be sort of somewhere in the middle part there. And of course, these chakras are closer to the center, closer to the spine, so these are not on the surface of your body. But they're also not pinpoints, they're sort of areas, so don't worry so much about getting the exact right location. It's more about the intention and the focus here. So we're going to be moving our attention between those three chakras and working with the primal or bija mantra for each of those chakras. And so for the root chakra, for the first chakra, it's Lam, L-A-M. And then for the second chakra, it's Wam, which is V-A-M or W-A-M. And the third chakra is Ram, okay, Ram, R-A-M. So we'll be chanting that mantra silently to ourselves as a thought, but first we'll do it out loud a few times just to get the kind of vibration going. And so here we're starting to work with the vibratory nature of the subtle body and of nature itself and of reality, which is something that the plants are doing as well, right? We're working with ikaros or any kind of sacred ceremonial songs to tap into that vibration as well in ceremony. So, okay, so let's begin this one. The hands are resting on the legs. As we bring the attention to each of the chakras, we're gently sort of like pulling the chakra in. That area kind of goes in a little bit, right? So with the first chakra, we're basically taking like a root lock or, mula bandha, if you know that, but basically just contracting the muscles of that area a little bit as we chant the mantra. Then we go to the second, we gently pull that area in a little bit. And then the third, we go to the navel, that pulls in a little bit, like a gentle kind of like pump almost, but very small. And we're just emphasizing the attention, really. We're kind of bringing the attention more through the physical manifestation of the body. Okay, so let's begin this one. We'll be here for about the same amount of time as the last one. We'll begin out loud and then we'll take the mantra silent. Okay. So tall spine as always. Inhaling. Lam, Wam, Ram. 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 And now continuing silently to yourself. Moving through the lower three chakras. If anything is coming up for you, just being with that. If you need to take a break, please do. But do your best to continue with the practice. Just one more minute. You're doing great. Okay, and after this round, letting the mantra fade away, sitting quietly, and just allowing whatever is arising to allow to arise. bring your attention to your heart center. And see if you can move into a place of total acceptance for yourself and for your life and for whatever's happening right now. And keeping your attention at the heart, you can keep your eyes closed too, although if you want to watch me, you can. We're going to do a simple practice to close out this segment. We're going to be bringing our hands to Namaskar Mudra, so prayer mudra in front of the heart. And then we're going to inhale the hands out, the arms extend, the chest opens slightly, and then we exhale through the mouth as we bring the hands back to that Namaskar Mudra in front of the heart. And just do that a few more times, inhaling outwards, expanding, exhaling as the hands come back, maintaining that attention at the heart center. We're starting to move up the spine to the higher chakras and to tap into more of a heart-centered approach, more of a devotional quality. Inhaling and exhaling. It's as simple as that. Okay. And then coming back to stillness, just lowering the hands. You can start to move the spine by sort of moving through the hips, rotating the hips as you sit. Just coming into a gentle pelvic movement here. Further warming up the spine. And coming to stillness, taking a moment to breathe. So in plant ceremony, these plants like ayahuasca, they're working on our subtle body as we talked about, and they're offering us this experience of unity consciousness. And they're opening our chakras, especially the heart chakra. It's known by these indigenous people as a very heart-centered medicine, a very heart-based practice and experience. And so a lot of what happens in these ceremonies is that helps us to feel our feelings, and our feelings sort of come out in ways that we otherwise probably tamp down in our normal lives. And it may release trauma from the body, like I talked about, and so for all these reasons, this can be a very intense thing. And so because of that, we want to integrate these experiences. So just to reemphasize how important it is when we're having these intense experiences to kind of ground and to move into healing practices with that, and to be gentle with ourselves. So we're working again with the vibrational quality of nature, but also with the gross reality of our bodies, right? So with that, let's come into a very short movement practice to help us kind of get the blood flowing a little bit, get out of this seat, and get onto the mat a little more. So I'll meet you on the mat once you move the props out of the way, and let's all meet in cat-cow. So we'll meet on our hands and knees. Okay, so we're in cat-cow. Hands and knees are on the mat. And we're just gently arching and rounding the spine. Starting to come into the body a little more here. You can move more creatively if you want to. You can kind of move into side stretches and move the hips a little bit, or just coming into the body. Continuing to ground through the body. Okay. So then we'll tuck our toes, push back into downward dog, just for a breath. And then we'll step either foot to the top so you can face the camera. We're just coming into a wide-legged stance here. Okay, so we're in a wide-legged stance. And what we're going to start with here is a grounding practice that works with we're going to now connect the first and fourth chakra. So we're now still working as we have been with that lower 3 and now the lower 4, right? And so here, we're going to work with the breath and with the Mula Bandha, so the root lock, the contracting the first chakra, the perineum. So this is called Muladhara to Anahata. So we're moving from the first to the fourth chakra. So here we're going to inhale with the palms facing up, hands in front of us, just coming up to the heart level, inhaling through the nose, and then we're going to turn to the right, and we're going to exhale through the mouth as the palms turn down, and we start to sink a little bit. And so there's a little bit of a lifting here. The legs are wide, the feet are at 45 degrees, the knees are over the ankles. And so then we're just lifting back up, and then holding. We're going to contract the root lock here as we turn. So the breath is held, the root lock is engaged, and then we're going to exhale, releasing the root lock as we lower down the left side. Then inhaling, root lock, turning as we inhale, holding the breath if we need to, and then exhaling, lowering down, turning the palms. Inhaling. So we're imagining as we use the hands, we're imagining that we're moving from the first to the fourth chakra and then back again. Right? So continuing to work with the subtle body here. You can keep the eyes open, or you can close the eyes. You want a pretty wide stance, but you also want to feel stable in this and to feel comfortable. So you don't want to be overdoing it or using so much exertion that the grounding aspect of the practice gets lost. So just a couple more rounds. Spine stays relatively tall in this variation anyways. Okay, and then let's come back to center, straighten the legs, lower the hands to the sides, palms are open to the front. You can have the eyes closed or open, but here we're just breathing, grounding into our feet, all four corners of our feet, feeling the earth beneath our feet, starting to feel that integration that's happening from the base of our spine, from our sense of home, our sense of self, our sense of security, coming up through our creative and emotional body, our center of will and desire, and then into the heart center, the heart space. So we're moving more into integration here. And so with that, just to kind of integrate that experience, let's come into a laya movement. So these laya movements are more meditative movements, sort of like Tai Chi. And we're going to be working with one called Maha Maya, the great illusion. So the great illusion being, of course, that we're separate, that we're alone in our life, alone in our struggle. So in this, we're going to be imagining that we have a ball of energy between the hands. The knees are bent, feet are still wide, feet are still at 45 degrees roughly. We're going to be forming a large figure 8 with the ball of energy in front of us. So it's sort of, there's a little bit of a sinking and rising, the knees are moving, you're flowing through this It's slow. There's a real sort of surrendered quality to it. If you lose your balance, just come right back. But yeah, you just imagine almost that the ball of energy is moving you. You're just falling into this movement. Breathing as you wish, just allowing the breath to be as it is. Just flowing here, not worrying too much about form or structure, but more about the flow, the continuity, the seamlessness. You can make it a little dancey if you want to. Or you can go very slowly. Really make it yours. Okay. And now we come back to stillness, straighten the legs, palms open to the front once again. After our movement, after dynamism, we always return to stillness. This is the dance of our existence, right? So from here, you can turn the feet a little bit more parallel. We're just gonna kind of ragdoll forward. So we're just gonna you can bend the knees, you can do whatever you want. Just kind of let the body hang. You can shake it out. We're just ragdolling here. You can stay up a little bit. You don't have to be so far forward. Just shaking it all out, releasing any tension. Okay, and then turning one of your feet so it's parallel to the sides of the mat, lowering the hands. We're going to come back into downward facing dog. Just for a breath. And then we'll actually come into child's pose. So lower the knees out wide and let the forehead rest on the ground. Take a few breaths here. And then walking your hands back towards your knees, coming back to sit on your heels. We're going to transition back to our seated position. So letting the hips come out to one side, and then swinging the feet out in front of you, or however you want to find your way back to your seat. Go ahead and grab your props that you were using to elevate the hips, and I will meet you back on the mat in seated position. Okay, now we're back to our comfortable seat. Our hips are elevated. Spine is tall, and we're not using much effort to achieve that. So now we're moving into the final sequence of this session, and if you have music on, I encourage you to turn that off because we're going to work with mantra, and the mantra for these practices will tend to dominate the soundscape of your space. So for now, turn off your music. And with plant medicine experiences, a big part of the process is learning to sort of commune with the divine and surrender to the divine, or to surrender in a way that's sort of like a collaboration with the divine, right? And so in the yoga tradition, the way that we can do that, or one way we can do that, is to tap into these archetypes that represent the sort of sustaining and nurturing aspects of nature. And those are Vishnu and his consort Lakshmi, right? So we're going to explore a Vishnu and a Lakshmi practice here as we go into the session further. So comfortable seat, tall spine. Let's begin with the Vishnu practice. This is Om Namo Narayanaya. In this practice, we're working with mantra and mudra once again. So here we're going to be sort of starting at the heart center, right? We're going to bring our hands into Namaskar, and then we're going to inhale the hands, we're going to use the mantra as we go up, right? So the mantra is Om Namo Narayanaya. Okay, so you can follow me. I'll be leading with the mantra. We go up on the Om Namo. So Om Namo. And then on Narayanaya, we open the palms towards the front and we form a rainbow with our hands kind of going out in front of us. Okay. Until the hands come back, and then we inhale the hands back to the heart. Okay, so we're doing this for about 5 minutes. Okay, and so just as always, we're surrendering into this practice. We're just letting our whole self fall into the vibration of this practice. Okay, so tall spine. The eyes will be closed and just following the mudras, but feel free to watch me for the first few rounds if you need to. Okay, let's begin. So inhaling the hands to the heart. Om Namo Narayanaya. Om Namo Narayanaya. mantra to a whisper. Om. And after this round, just letting the mantra fade away. The hands rest on the knees. Eyes are closed. And we're just marinating in the nurturing sound vibrations of Vishnu, Narayana. Tapping into the supportive quality of nature, of the cosmos. Okay, opening your eyes, returning to the space. We're going to transition now into the feminine aspect. So that was Vishnu, the masculine archetype, and now we're going to explore the energy of Lakshmi, the feminine archetype. So Lakshmi kriya is going to work with mudra and mantra as well. The first mudra is going back to the first practice we did today, prana mudra. We're going to have that out to the sides like this. Elbows are just relaxed by our sides, shoulders are relaxed. And here we're going to chant Shri Shriye 3 times. Shri Shriye, Shri Shriye, Shri Shriye. Okay. And then here we're going to use Jnana Mudra, but it's a variation. So Jnana Mudra is just, the thumb and index finger touching. We're going to have the fingers together otherwise, and the edges of the hands together as we hold this mudra in front of our heart, okay? And so while we're here, we're going to be chanting Shri Ishware, Shri Ishware, Shri Ishware. So we're just, with these mantras, we're invoking the quality of Lakshmi, of abundance at all levels. And Ishware is just a variation of Ishvadi Pranadhana, which is totality, which is, our true nature, which is Brahmasmi, basically. Okay, so we'll be here for about the same amount of time. Tall spine as always. Eyes will be closed, but feel free to watch me if you need to. And your attention is just going to be on the mudras as always. Okay, so inhaling, let's begin. Shri Shriye, Shri Shriye, Shri Shriye, Shri Ishware, Shri Ishware, Shri Ishware, Shri Shriye, Shri Shriye, Shri Shriye, Shri Ishware, Shri Ishware, Shri Ishware, Shri Shriye, Shri Shriye, Shri Shriye, Shri Ishware, Shri Ishware, Shri Ishware, Shri Shriye, Shri Shriye, Shri Shriye, Shri Ishware, Shri Ishware, Shri Shri Shriye, Shri Shriye, Shri Shriye, Shri Ishvare, Shri Ishvare, Shri Ishvare, Shri Shriye, Shri Shriye, Shri Shriye, Shri Ishvare, Shri Ishvare, Shri Ishvare, Shri Shriye, Shri Shriye, Shri Shriye, Shri Ishvare, Shri Ishvare, Shri Ishvare, Shri Shriye, Shri Shriye, Shri Shriye, Shri Ishvare, Shri Ishvare, Shri Ishvare, Shri Shriye, Shri Shriye, Shri Shriye, Shri Ishvare, Shri Ishvare, Shri Ishvare, Shri Shriye, Shri Shriye, Shri Shriye, Shri Ishvare, Shri Ishvare, Shri Ishvare, Shri Shriye, Shri Shriye, Shri Shriye, Shri Ishvare, Shri Ishvare, Shri Ishvare, Shri Shriye, Shri Shriye, Shri Shriye, Shri Ishvare, Shri Ishvare, Shri Ishvare, Shri Shriye, Shri Shriye, Shri Shriye, Shri Ishvare, Shri Ishvare, Shri Ishvare, Shri Shriye, Shri Shriye, Shri Shriye, Shri Ishvare, Shri Ishvare, Shri Ishvare, Shri Shriye, Shri Shriye, Shri Shriye, Shri Ishvare, Shri Ishvare, Shri Ishvare, Shri Shriye, Shri Shriye, Shri Shriye, Shri Ishvare, Shri Ishvare, Shri Ishvare, Shri Shriye, Shri Shriye, Shri Shriye, Shri Ishvare, Shri Ishvare, Shri Ishvare. Now take the mantra silent as a thought, continuing the mudras, continuing the practice. And then after this round, letting the mantra fade, lowering the hands, sitting quietly with your eyes closed, basking in the nurturing and abundant presence of Lakshmi. Just breathing. Just breathing. So for some people, this may have put you in a very transcendental state. If that's the case, I invite you to remain there in a meditative state or take Shavasana. There are a few more practices remaining, but you can stop there if you like. You can continue with us. It's up to you. So to integrate that experience, let's practice a variation of Amrita Pranayama. So we're going to work with the breath in this practice. Very simple. The hands are resting on the thighs. We're going to be inhaling through the mouth. And then exhaling through the nose. Very simple. And so this practice is called Amrita Pranayama because we're imagining a golden light starting at the base of the spine, the first chakra, rising up through all the chakras, well, the first 6 anyways, up to the third eye, where the golden light is then spreading and infusing our whole body. So the inhale is expanding that golden light, and then the exhale is integrating that. Okay. So inhaling through the mouth. Exhaling through the nose. And then returning to breathing normally, coming back to your center. You can change the cross of your legs if your legs are getting a little tired of that position. You can stretch them out. Closing in on final meditation here. So, as part of this process of integration, I think it can be important to be gentle with ourselves. And part of that, I think, is forgiveness, right? Forgiving yourself, forgiving others, moving into this more soft, kind of accepting and loving space, right? And so let's just practice a simple forgiveness kriya for a few minutes to cultivate that kind of attitude, that kind of bhava, okay? So this one, we start with our hands covering our heart like this. And we say quietly, silently to ourselves, I forgive myself. And then we extend the arms out and we say to ourselves quietly, I forgive you. So it's a silent mantra, so to speak. I forgive myself. I forgive you. Okay? I forgive myself. I forgive you. I forgive myself. I forgive you. I forgive myself. I forgive you. And after this round, letting go of that mantra and lowering the hands. Take a few breaths. Bring your attention to your body, to your heart, to the space inside. So we're going to finish with a simple meditation. You can remain seated. I invite you to stay seated, or you can lie down in Shavasana. Totally your choice. The meditation is going to work with a mantra. Aham Brahmasmi. Aham Brahmasmi. And all this means is I am totality. And so this is further, it's a powerful reminder of our unity, of our integration with totality, with wholeness, with the cosmos, with everything, right? So it's invoking that quality, and we'll work with the mantra in this way. As we chant Aham, our attention will be at the heart center. And then Brahmasmi, our attention will widen out to the rest of our body, to the space around us, to the location we're in, and then eventually out beyond the earth, the solar system. You get the idea, right? So come into your seat or your Shavasana, and let's begin. I'll start out loud, but then we'll take the mantra quiet, okay? So, Aham Brahmasmi. Aham Brahmasmi. Aham Brahmasmi. Aham Brahmasmi. Aham continuing with the mantra as a thought, as a vibration inside yourself. Aham Brahmasmi. Aham at the heart center. Brahmasmi expanding out into space, into the cosmos, into totality. Okay, I'm going to close the session here, but I invite you to stay in that meditation for a lot longer if you want to. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining me in this session. I hope you have felt the integration benefits, whether you've been working with plant medicine or just being a human being in the pandemic. I hope this has given you some sense of unity, of integration, of healing, and of bliss. I hope you've experienced some bliss as well. So again, my name is Jayadev. You can find me, I teach elemental yoga, so you can find me at elemental.yoga. And I just want to thank you so much for the opportunity to share these practices with you. So for now, Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat.